During the first decades of Hollywood's existence, there was not a single studio that was not run by the Jews. Each one of today's 8 major studios was founded by the Jews. There is a disproportionately large number of Jews among the producers and directors, but when David Selznick heard that he was called a Jew, he said, "I'm an American, I'm not a Jew." The founder of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's Studios, Louis Mayer, was born in a Jewish Orthodox family in Minsk. But when he was asked to give a donation for a Jewish organization for relief for the Jews, he said somebody should start a fund for a relief from the Jews. And these views, unfortunately, were not an exception but the rule. Up until the attack of Pearl Harbor, all the studios of Hollywood refused to produce films that would be even slightly critical of Hitler. The only film that was criticizing Nazism came out then was produced by non-Jewish Charlie Chaplin, who made it independently of all Jewish-owned studios. After the attack of Pearl Harbor, Nazism became an American problem, not a Jewish one. So then Hollywood began criticizing Hitler in its films. But up until 1945, none of these films had even a mention of what Nazis were doing to the Jews. The owner of, at that time, the main newspaper in the country, New York Times, a Jew, Arthur Sulzberger, wrote that he does not see anything common between him and the Jews of Europe. The managing editor of the New York Times, Abraham Rosenthal, also a Jew, later said, "Nobody put a sign on the wall, downplay the Holocaust. This was just the way of our life." Now we understand why during the Holocaust, many regular Americans simply did not know what was going on. The topic of the Holocaust is not the only place where we see Hollywood's Jews' hostility towards their Jewishness. Hollywood's films, for an average American, were just films. But Jews always notice one of their own when they see him or her on the screen. In almost every film, there was a character with distinctively Jewish features and last name who was marrying a clearly non-Jewish girl. In mid-20th century, American Jews in their majority were marrying only Jews. The intentional efforts of Hollywood were able to normalize mixed marriages within a couple of decades. And the attitude towards Jewishness is not the only area where Hollywood influenced the opinion of our society. In the 60s, most of Americans, according to all the polls, were against abortion on demand. In 1971, the most popular TV show, Maude, was built around everyone's beloved character having an abortion. The researchers later wrote that this was the turning point that changed the views of most of Americans on abortion. In his book, Primetime Propaganda, Ben Shapiro interviews Hollywood's producers who admit that they are trying to secretly incorporate ideological influences in their films. People sometimes say the society must determine the moral values of a person. But the views of the society are being controlled by Hollywood. And the news about what is going on in Hollywood, in the workplace and in people's personal lives there, clearly indicate that Hollywood is not the most moral place. If your ethical norms are guided by the society, then you have subcontracted your consciousness to a small group of stuck-up millionaires who are known for their immorality. And now, the very people who gave the levers of control of their subconscious to Hollywood say that they don't like religion because it dictates to people their values. Some people say that people should set their moral values on their own. That each person should do it by thinking independently himself. Well, independently and on their own thinks only a hermit who lives in a forest. But your views are being manipulated every single day. Art is the most powerful method of conveying ideas and feelings. Poetry, music, acting are so powerful precisely because they affect a person on an emotional and often subconscious level. Of course, the person's view of the world around him is formed not only by watching TV, but also from speaking with friends and learning. But your friends and your teachers are watching the same TV, and they're reading the same newspapers, and they are being influenced by the same people as you are. The only hope to protect yourself from these influences is to have a written down, detailed value system that answers the questions before they are being emotionally played out on screens in front of you. But how can you write down and think through millions of life questions in advance? Now you understand what the yeshiva students are doing, spending years studying the Torah. The Torah on a logical level, openly and directly explains the ideology of Judaism. In modern world, the question is not whether or not someone will dictate your morals to you. The question is rather, who will dictate these morals? And also, the question is whether these morals will be dictated to you directly and openly through logic, like the Torah does it, or will these morals be given to you in a sneaky subconscious method, playing on your emotions as it is done by Hollywood?